Hey, episode 184. Do you want to start or should I start?
Go ahead and start.
Okay, so I was going to get all pissy and I probably, well, anyway, the last week you made some assertions and uh, as if they were absolutely the truth, and then all week, or actually 3 days since our last show, I'm like, yeah, I can't fucking your assertions. Every time I poke at them, they have problems. Okay, start with remdesivir. You said it's a treatment that the FDA has approved it as a treatment, and that's true. And but then I looked at the studies, and one study, a double-blind, 500 people in each side, the drug side and the placebo side, for a total of 1,000 people studied, showed that remdesivir reduced average hospitalization from 15 days to 10 days and mortality at 29 days. If you were in the hospital for 29 days, um, remdesivir reduced mortality from 15% to 11%, which is goodish, not great. Um, And then there was a World Health Organization study of 11,000 people, um, which showed that remdesivir had no statistically significant benefits. Um, so it's kind of the same as every other fucking treatment, or a lot
Hang
of
on, hang
treatments
on,
where,
hang on for a second. Since you made a point, I don't feel like I'm interrupting you. You made a point, and I just want to respond.
well, let me just
Um,
finish my sentence. Let me just finish my
all right,
sentence, which
okay.
is with all these, with a new disease and all these, treatments that are new to the disease, um, what happens is you get a lot of fucking studies and that show various things.
All right. Well, first of all, if you're one of the things we know about the Wuhan virus is that the longer you have it, the more likely you're going to die. So if somebody's in the hospital, they're not outpatient, they're actually in the hospital for 29 days, then, Rick, nothing is going to help them. We don't have anything with possibly the dexamethasone or the Oxford steroid is supposed to fight the cytokine storm. And I've also heard that the antibody treatment can help you at any stage, but the cytokine storm collapses the lungs. So the remdesivir isn't going to help you if you've been in the hospital for 29 days. You're
Well, but
supposed to get
it did in the
you're
study, in the
okay.
one
Hang on.
study,
It helps you by 4%. But if if you take remdesivir or hydroxychloroquine, they're very similar. You're supposed to take it on the fifth day of symptoms for it to have effectiveness. So I reject your 29-day hospitalization study as
but
being
that's the
irrelevant.
study that the FDA used when they said, yeah, it's effective. So,
All
I,
right. Well, I I would have to see. I don't believe that's the only study. I'm sure the FDA has more studies than one study of 500 people. I mean, we're talking about studies of thousands of people.
yeah,
So it seems to
that's
me that
probably the best study that's been done because it was 1,000 people double blind. Um,
mhm.
and it showed some benefit, and that's, I mean, that's to your side. That's
Well, I mean, my side, I would present all the doctors that are saying that they haven't lost a patient. Uh,
we've talked about that, but go ahead.
yeah, but so the for the viewers that are coming in late on this, basically, Rick is a Democrat, and he has been led to believe that there's really no treatment, that we're in eventually everyone in the United States will be dead. All right, I'm exaggerating, but basically, my argument is that the Democrats have locked down the country destroying the economy with basically political intentions. They want to destroy the economy, and they're not going to open it up, even though there are effective treatments. And so I'm trying to tell Rick that there are effective treatments. They don't work all the time. They work most of the time. And Rick is trying to convince me, no, there's no treatment. There's nothing you can do. It's certain death. So
Okay, so
I
I
don't
get
know.
to
You
respond
can
because you're
choose who you want to believe.
misrepresenting my what I claim is there are a bunch of treatments and they're all except for like monoclonal antibodies where they take plasma from people who've recovered and they clone the immune cells in those people and then they give that to somebody. That shit is super duper effective, but it's not widely available. Trump got it because he's the fucking president, but that shit's really good. Everything else has is okay. That it that they're all because it's a virus, not a bacteria, and viruses are harder to 100% wipe out. So all these various treatments like knock down illness and mortality by about 30%. Um, which is, I mean, if I got the shit, I'd want to get treated with everything available that gave me a chance of being 30% less sick or 30% less chance of being dead. But it's not, it's nothing is like this miracle thing except maybe the antibodies from people who recovered.
All right. Do you? All right. So I just want to say to our viewers, in my opinion, it's very important to Rick to keep talking about the Wuhan virus because that's the Democrats' main attack on Trump. If it wasn't for the Wuhan virus, which they've tried to hang on Trump's shoulders, they really wouldn't have any reason to object to his presidency. So,
Well, I mean, no, there are plenty of other. Well, no, hold on. Let me mostly agree with you that there are plenty of other reasons to for somebody who doesn't like Trump to dislike him and dislike his presidency.
no
But
rational reasons.
well,
And I
I
don't
mean,
think it's
I
rational.
agree with you that the biggest
Yeah,
handle,
that's your big
the
argument.
easiest, the easiest thing to harp on to show that to make the argument that you don't want him to be president again is is COVID
So
and the and everything
you're
else that
interrupt
happened around COVID.
so you're
Yeah,
interrupting me to verify what I just said.
yeah, but I'm allowed to agree with you.
Okay, fine. You're now. This is going to make it harder for you to hang this on Trump. I thought I'd throw this at you, Rick. It turns out now, this is a recent study. This study came out this week. Don't ask me to find it. I guess you could look it up if you want to. But of the 220,000 deaths from
230
Wuhan,
now, but okay.
80,000 of them were in rest homes. And what that means is that 30% of the deaths are at the hands of the governors, particularly of Democrat states, because the rest homes are overseen by the governors, not the president. And I can tell you, just to give some people an idea, the rest homes, without interrupting me, Rick, at the beginning, on March 25th, 4 Democrat governors of major states made it mandatory, illegal, to turn away an elderly person with Wuhan from a rest home. So that policy remained in place in New York until May the 25th. So that was 2 months. But the policy is still somewhat in place around the country. And the fascinating thing is the Democrat governors, for example, in California, never did uh, really clean up what's going on in rest homes. And that's why it didn't just stop when they rescinded the policy. It turns out that it continued all the way up until 80,000 deaths. And let me say what sort of mistakes they made briefly. Um, I mentioned about 6 months ago that there was a rest home that was doing very well, and that's because the owner of the rest home said whoever comes into this facility to work has to live here, and they're just as locked down as the patients. And of course, no one could go into the rest home without being tested or quarantined. Well, that's not the policy in California right now. I can tell you, I don't know about every state in the union, but I can tell you that there are still people going in and out of rest homes, cleaning them, working in the kitchen, and going around the state to different rest homes, infecting other people. So that's 80,000 deaths right there because of the Democrats, because of Democrat governors.
All right, so I mean, we can talk about numbers, and we can talk about rest homes because my mother-in-law is in a rest home, and that fucking place has until the last month been super tight. Um, and I don't maybe I'm sure that the tightness comes from the rest home not wanting to kill its fucking clients. Um, and I mean, I don't know if we need to argue about the 80,000 and break it down to. I can tell you that 33,000 people. Something's squeaking. What's the squeaky thing?
It's not
Okay.
me, it's the director.
All right. Okay. Anyway, so 33,000 people total have died in the state of New York. I'll give you, I don't know what the actual number of rest home people is, but I'll give you half, roughly 16,000 died in New York rest homes. Um, so, and then, I don't know, the others, I would contend that not all of the 80,000 who died in rest homes died in rest homes in states that had governors that are democratic, but who fucking cares? Other stuff that's going on. Um, that's not where the argument should be. I'll give you the 80,000, even though I think it's exaggerated. Um, what's happening now is we're having the greatest number of new COVID cases per day in the U.S. that we've ever had. Um, Today was the second worst Sunday in history. Yesterday was the worst Saturday. The day before that was the worst day ever. This coming week will be even worse because our national governance, Mark Meadows on Meet the Press this morning, or no, talking to Jake Tapper this morning, said that the national government is no longer trying to slow down rate of the spread of COVID. It's trying to treat it. Um, and you're talking about these treatments, but the deal is I have claimed that you can measure the effectiveness of treatments by how many people are dying per day, and we're in the range. We broke 1,000 again last week, and we're in the range of, the weekends are lower because not everybody reports, but on weekdays we're in the range of 7, 8, 900, 1,000 deaths a day. Which, so you can talk about all these great treatments, but we're still losing people to COVID at 3 times the rate that we lost soldiers to the Japs and the Nazis in World War fucking two. We're up to 230,000 dead, and um, so I mean, shit is better in terms of mortality, but a shitload of people are still dying. And then you talk about doctors who've treated a lot of people. Um, Without having people die. And the deal is that if you're treating a lot of people and they're not necessarily positive for COVID, and the mortality rate for COVID right now is about 1.5%. You could easily treat 400 people and get lucky and not have anybody die, just due to fucking statistics. Um,
That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about doctors that have treated thousands of patients, uh,
but
and claim none of them have died, or some and they've treated them with treatments that Trump mentioned 6 months ago, hydroxychloroquine and zinc, and some of the doctors are claiming that you can treat the virus just by treating it what it's doing wrong. If it antivirals of all types, helping people breathe. But I think the president is doing the right thing because what I think is fascinating is how deceptive Rick is without realizing it. All the Democrats I know say we're hitting record number of cases, and I think, Rick, you'll have to agree with me that our numbers of tests have gone up dramatically from a month ago and dramatically from 2 months ago. We're now administering the highest number of tests we ever have.
yeah,
And what's happening is they're coming back positive. So we're,
but
I believe,
positivity rates are also going up. It's not that.
I don't believe that. I think that, just let me finish my point in response to you, okay?
Okay.
I think what's happening is they're finding out that more people have it than we thought, but the death rate is not going up. It's not correspondingly going up. For example, at the high point of the illness around mid-April, we lost 2,700 people in one day. We're averaging now, I mean, today is a weekend, so it was only 445, but we're averaging around maybe 700. So we've gone from 2,700 to 700, but you're saying that we're having the highest number of cases ever. Don't
Yeah.
interrupt me. Don't interrupt me. So if number of cases corresponded to deaths, then we should have more than 2,700 people dying every day. But we're not. We have only about a fourth of that.
Oh,
So
okay.
what's happening in conclusion, for those people that aren't interested in the math, is we're finding more people have it, but our treatments are getting better, or the virus is less virulent than it used to be.
All right. So two things. One is you talked about my agenda. I got to talk about your agenda. You,
Yes.
as a conservative, are interested in minimizing the COVID, or what you call the Wuhan, because you're interested in shifting blame away from national leadership onto state leaders, onto China. That's why you call it the Wuhan, and onto people who didn't listen to Trump when he said everybody should take hydroxychloroquine. That WHO study of 11,000 people also looked at hydroxychloroquine and found no benefit with hydroxy. But the deal now, when in April, when deaths spiked, mortality was about 8%, because yeah, we didn't know what the good treatments were, and we also didn't know what the good drugs were, and also like the good strategies. Like, it turns out that that putting people on ventilators isn't always a ticket to survival. And if you do put them on, like, one thing that helps people survive is you put them on their stomachs. I don't know exactly why that helps, but that helps. Anyway, treatment has gotten a lot better, and it's dropped mortality down from 8% when we didn't know shit to, I don't know, under 2% now. But we are testing more now. We're testing about 1 million people a day, compared to 3 months ago about 400,000 people a day. But it's not just that we're testing more people, that we're getting more cases. We're if it were if that were the case, then we wouldn't see an increase in hospitalization. But hospitals are filling up again all across the country. So it's not that our testing's getting more effective. It's that the number of the number of people who are sick enough to be hospitalized is also going up again.
I don't believe you, and
Hold on,
here's
also the
why.
director. Wait, director.
No, 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 no. I need to respond to Rick, and then you can ask your question. Um, I don't believe that hospitalization rates is it shows that the virus is getting worse. What is happening is people are not stupid. They can remember back into March and April when doctors said that you were not to come to the hospital unless your symptoms were severe. I remember specifically hearing doctors say, and people that I knew, friends of mine, saying, yeah, the doctor said go home, try and, because most of these things just go away on their own. It'll be like a bad flu, and then come back to the hospital if it doesn't go away. I heard that, and that was the protocol. But now, another explanation for the increase in hospitalization would simply be that the doctors realize that you should come in earlier, and they're not turning people away the same way.
All right, that's a good argument. I'm okay with that.
All right, what was your question, Director?
Director. Yeah, 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 yeah. It would. Okay, so our director asked if we weren't doing enough testing in March and April, that you needed to be super duper fucking sick to get tested. Wouldn't that artificially raise the mortality rate because only the sickest people were getting tested? And sure, yeah, that's another reason the mortality rate was higher back then, I would guess.
Right, and that leads me to a very important point. Thank you, Director. Good question. And that is, if I was the president, I would do exactly what you said, move from containing the virus to treating it. Because if in March we had a virus that we knew most people weren't going to get, and the people that did get it only had a 2% chance of dying, I would say there is no reason to panic. This is not a pandemic. Anything that you have a 2% chance of dying from is serious, but not enough to grind the United States to a halt. And furthermore, they also know now that children are really out of danger and don't really pass it, particularly to adults. So what they could have done was just said, okay, 2% of the people are going to die from this, but 90% of those people are elderly people in rest homes. So instead of shutting down the entire United States, what we're going to do is keep the schools, the businesses, the gymnasiums, the sporting events, everything open, but we're going to concentrate all of our resources on the vulnerable people in the rest homes and the elderly and the people with poor immune systems, and that should be the end of it.
Yeah, but now, I mean, and we've got our sporting events are back in this weird, unattended way. The
Yeah,
Dodgers
that's
won
not
game
back.
3 of the World Series tonight.
Yeah, that's
Um,
not back, Rick. Come on.
yeah, but you can't fill fucking actually no, they've I think they're filling the stadium like I think they're selling 11,000 seats for every World Series game. At
Mhm.
least they did that for the league championship series. Um, but all right, so they've I've seen
Repeat the
studies that
question,
say
Rick.
that thousands of cases seem to be coming from the Trump rallies. Now, if you thousands of cases doesn't mean thousands of dead. If you do the math, and I've done the math a lot.
Come in, come in.
Okay, okay. So say you've got 2,500 people at a Trump rally. I think out of that, now you get maybe a total of 400 cases coming from that. The people who get it there, plus the cases that result from the people who got it and spread it to other people. But out of 400 cases with 2% mortality, a 2,500 person Trump rally only kills like 8 people.
Well,
Uh,
no, but your 2% mortality, you got to take into account that people that have that are over 75 or are have immune system problems aren't going to go to these rallies or
are you?
shouldn't
Hey,
go.
look at those fucking rallies.
I
Like,
know, but they shouldn't go. That
yeah, but
don't
if you look at
if
the
you're
people at
vulnerable.
Trump rallies,
I
they
know a
look
lot of them
like
are
America.
old, but we're adults and we live in America and they're
Yeah,
taking
but
their
when you're saying
chances.
that these people aren't going to die at those rates, they fucking are. Because when you look at Trump people, the average Trump supporter is 56 years old. And the average Trump supporter is like the rest of America, is likely to be overweight, is likely to have pre-diabetes, and is going to the average Trump supporter has at least verges on having additional risk factors.
Okay, I don't give a flying fuck, Rick. I'll just be honest with you, so we don't have to
Okay.
dilly-dally here. I hope that everybody that wants to go to a concert, a theme park, a sporting event, a Trump rally, you take your chances. You're an adult, you're an American citizen. If you think you can handle it, you go. If you think you're vulnerable, stay home. That's the country I want to live in.
I
I
think
don't
for the
want to
most
live in.
part, that's except for amusement parks and certain places like gyms and shit. I mean, I'd say I can't speak to the percent opened up with any degree of authority, but I guess that we're fucking 60% opened up. But among the things you might want to do if things were totally normal, if this were 2018, um, I'd say that you can do 60% of those things, which isn't great, but it's not nothing either.
Yeah,
I'd like to go back to the gym, maybe.
I don't want to ask hypochondriacs and Democrats what I have permission to do. It's really none of your business anymore. You've had your fun. You ruined the economy. You've made everybody miserable. Now I think it's time for you to leave people alone.
I don't know. We're not
I
in
don't
charge of
care.
the fucking
You want
national
to take
fucking
care of
shit.
you. What you want to take care of your health? You can stay in your basement forever, Rick. I don't
No,
care, and
but
I don't
you
want to
said
ask
this
your
isn't a
permission.
pandemic. This is the second largest pandemic in U.S. history. We are more than one third of the death count, or more than one third of the way to the biggest pandemic ever, which was Spanish flu.
Okay,
Um,
that was in if things had continued like they were in April. What we have right now is a treatable virus that is going around. We know pretty much how to avoid it. We know how to treat it fairly well, and that should be the end of it. And it
no,
should be the
at
end of it.
current death, like at current death rates, um, if we don't get a vaccine by the end of 2021, and we should, but if we don't, at current death rates, we're we're like 3/4 of the way to the death count of Spanish flu. We're we're
Okay,
we're
I'm going to.
almost certainly going to get halfway to the Spanish flu death count,
Okay, Rick.
which is a big that's
The number of people that died in a California, 9 million people in it.
yeah.
The number of people that died today is less than 20. Okay? You don't shut a state down because 20 people die. You know what, Rick? I'm going to say this again. I said this 8 months ago, but it's worth repeating. If you're so concerned, you're such a great humanitarian, you Democrats, about human life, just lower the speed limit 15 miles per hour. That would save countless thousands of lives. Why don't we do that instead, since you're great humanitarians?
I don't think it would save as many lives as COVID has taken.
Oh, I don't
But,
know. I don't know. 5 years
no,
at
it
driving at
can't. It
50
fucking
instead of
can't because
75?
what, 40,000 people die in cars every year, and we've already had 230 people die of COVID this year. So even if you
Okay,
drop the vehicular death count to nothing, that's still only 1/6 of the COVID death count.
no, okay, that's fine. But you're making my argument because if of the 40,000 people that die in car accidents, if it is 40,000, probably three-quarters of them were speeding. That's usually why people die. They're going
I
too
think it's
fast.
changed. I think the what kills you in a car has changed. I think it's distracted driving now more than because you remember
Yeah,
the
but if
70s.
you're distracted, you don't die if you're driving 20 miles per hour.
I don't know. I haven't studied it, but
Rick,
you and I
Rick, I'll
lived
tell
through
you
the
something. I'll tell
70s
you
when
something.
everybody was going 80 and was
Yeah,
shit-faced.
yeah, I can assure you of something, Rick. I can assure you of something. Because I don't remember where I read this, but I have read this. That most of the people that die in cars were driving too fast.
Okay.
They were at high rates of speed. So really, we could lower the speed limit from 75 down to 40 or 50,
We
and
did this. We did
we'd
this
save
as
them.
a nation. We did it
Yeah, we
under
did
Jimmy
it, and
Carter to
we
save.
did it. Yeah, and get to save gas, and guess what? We saved lives too. It was a Yeah, and we did save lives. That's how we
Yeah, but
found
people
out.
hated it. People hated
Yeah,
Jimmy
yeah,
Carter didn't get reelected.
yeah. Well,
And
I hate living in a lockdown because Democrats are crazy.
all right,
So
so
the
let's talk
lockdown is
about
worse. I'll drive
this. Wait, wait,
55.
wait. Okay, so this is a more interesting argument we can have in that, and we brought it up, but let me bring it up again. In that life is less cheap now than it was in 1930. That um, one thing I think now a couple things. Like we're living in a more pussified world, right? You have to agree with me.
Okay, but I'd like to move on to something
All
else.
right, but
I hope
I'll
our
be quick.
audience isn't
I'll be
getting
quick.
bored.
Remember how we got bullied in PE class? How coaches were all fucking mean assholes, and if you went to Catholic schools, the nuns would beat the fuck out of you and all that stuff, and it was good for you, right? We were
Yeah, I
little.
remember that. It was a
Yeah, it
harder
toughened
world.
you up. Bullying toughened you up. Now that's changed. 50 years later, it's like, yeah, bullying gives you PTSD and then blah, 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 and nobody should be bullied and the whole thing. And I'm okay with that. I don't, I, I'm okay. Bullying did make me the crazy covered fucking. I mean, I carved scars all over myself to look tougher. And I like my scars, except my hemorrhoid scars. Nobody gets to see those. But I didn't, that was not my choice. Um, but anyway, so we're pussies about that. Our cars are filled with padding and driver assist things and like 14 airbags. If you get in any kind of wreck and your airbags go off, your car is totaled because it costs like $1,500 to replace the gazillion airbags that have been set off. Your car just turns into like a giant piece of popcorn. Everything pops, and your car's momentarily filled with balloons, and then it's anyway. So
Sounds great.
we take better care of ourselves.
Do they fill those airbags with white puppies and kittens?
That they okay, or popcorn at least, so
All
you can
right.
have something to. So that's somebody's joke where airbags should be filled with popcorn, so you have something to eat until the ambulance arrives.
Okay.
But anyway, in the year 1900, the average lifespan was in the 40s, which isn't exactly really. If you take away child mortality, it was more like in the low 60s. But now, um, lifespan and healthy lifespan reaches into the 80s, and so in the 1930s, like
Is
life was.
there a point?
My point is that life is more precious now because we have more life to live. Nobody wants to fucking die at 50 now because you've got another, you know, 25 years of good life and another 15 years of kind of semi good life, compared to fucking 100 years ago where, everybody was fucking dead by 62. So our approach to risk is slowly changing, where we're slowly realizing, that we shouldn't have to put up with stupid risk. And a lot of people will be permanently changed by COVID. They'll be like, you know, I can wear a mask under certain circumstances, and I can protect myself, with just a small amount of inconvenience. And a certain amount of the population is going to become pussified, permanently pussified like that. And I'm arguing that that's not a bad thing. And last point of it, by 2040, we will have the medical technology to extend the average American's lifespan past 100. And of that 100, like 85 will be good years where you still look decent and you can still engage in fucking. And if you've got 85 good years, people are going to want to reduce risk for stupid reasons. People aren't going to want to die for stupid reasons anymore. The end.
All right. Well, who can argue with any of that? I'd like to move on to one last point. I guess I have to bring it up. Wasn't going to bring this up about Wuhan, but I'll say it now. The governor of this state, Gavin Newsom, has announced that he will not approve the vaccine until California has approved it. So if Trump or if nationally the U.S. comes up with a vaccine that the FDA approves it, Newsom has decided that he won't let it be released in California until he personally approves it. All right?
Okay.
So just give you some idea what we have to put up with here in California.
Okay.
So let me ask you a question. And by the way, you're fine with that, right, Rick?
Well, I mean, when you look at what goes into, like, now Trump has been claiming the vaccine's still going to get here while he's, before the end of the year. Nobody else is saying that.
But do you agree with that Newsom, the governor of California, should be able to get between you and the FDA?
Yeah, if it's a rinky-dink FDA decision. I don't know.
You wouldn't if the FDA approves a vaccine, you think that that's probably some kind of sneaky plot from Trump, and you're going to wait till a Democrat governor approves the vaccine.
Well, it depends on when the vaccine comes out. If Trump announces that the vaccine is ready, if Trump this week, it's now Sunday, it's the 1 week to go till the election. If Trump on Wednesday announces that the vaccine has been tested, it works, and it will be available for distribution starting in late November, I'll be like, yeah, I want to see like clinical results.
Well, I'm sure there'll be clinical results.
Thing, like vaccine is.
But what if Governor Newsom says that it's okay? A Democrat.
I'm still going to want to see clinical results because what I've heard is that decent vaccine testing involves giving it to people and waiting a few months to see if there are any like delayed like side effects like Guillain-Barré syndrome or Gillian,
Yeah,
whatever,
they've been giving this vaccine to people for months now.
Okay, so I wanted, I'm able to look at fucking
Don't
studies
Yeah, but
and
don't you think it's peculiar that the governor of California is going to get between you and Washington D.C. about this
no, what's
vaccine?
peculiar is that all these federal agencies have had their guts pulled out, have had their balls chopped off, and do- at this point we don't know I don't know who's at the FDA, who's in charge of making the decisions because so many federal agencies have had career people like booted out and replaced with fucking people who used
So,
to sell
so,
water
you,
beds
so
until
you think that Trump would release a vaccine that might kill people on purpose so he could get elected,
no, but the fucking swine
and that the
flu
FDA would
vaccine.
approve that?
Remember when the swine flu vaccine came? We've talked about it. It came out. It probably had been inadequately, not the swine, well, yeah, it was swine flu. It had been inadequately tested, and one person in 10,000 got a little bit paralyzed from the fucking shit. And a lot of people, I do. Well, no, hold on, because this fucking vaccine came out, swine flu vaccine under Gerald Ford. So that puts it in the early 70s, and they started giving it to people, and one person in 10,000 got paralyzed from the
Wait,
fucking.
swine flu was under Obama.
No, that was or was there was some flu under fucking Gerald Ford, and I think it was still fucking swine flu. Maybe it was swine flu one, but anyway, they vaccinated a few million people with this shit, and a lot of people got sick, and then they had to stop vaccinating people because the vaccine was fucking people up. It was worse. The cure was worse than the disease in that case.
All right, so let's move on. I wanted to ask you a question now, Rick.
Okay.
I rarely ask Rick questions, but this is my favorite question to Rick. Are you ready? Because you hate it when I ask you this. So this was an interesting week for Trump. Uh, did did anything good happen with Trump? Did Trump accomplish anything this week?
All right, I'm not going to take too long to think. Off the top of my head, I don't remember anything.
Okay. Now, for those of you that are new to the show, this is a question that I ask periodically. Every few weeks, I ask Rick if Trump did anything good this week. And 9 times out of 10, he'll say he has no idea, which is fine. I mean, you can't guess. But the reason that he has no idea is because the media shields Rick from hearing anything good about Trump. His excuse is no, it's because I only look at the porn on the news or anything salacious and stupid. That's what I look at. But no, it's actually what Rick doesn't realize is that one of the reasons he hates Trump is that the media very effectively shields him from all the good events that have happened during the Trump administration and all the accomplishments. And I realized this a few months ago, so I started to ask Rick, what did anything happen? So today, I asked Rick this because Trump did something very good. Now, for those of you that don't know, the Sudan is an Islamic country, and it's a large country to the south in Africa, to the southwest of Israel. And up until recently, their belief about Israel was the problem was that there was one Jew left alive on the planet. The Sudanese hate Israel and Jews as much as any Nazis ever did. Well, this week, Trump arranged peace, an official peace between Sudan and Israel. A peace treaty was signed. Both the president of Israel and Sudan thanked Trump for being the catalyst for the whole agreement. That makes 4 peace treaties during the Trump administration that
I
happened
actually
in the
did hear
past
about
month.
this, and I dismissed it out of hand. Carol
Good.
told me about it.
Okay. All right. All right.
Carol said,
So
"Is there
so here
anything
it is.
to this peace treaty?" And I'm like, "What peace treaty?" And she's like, she said something, and I wasn't paying attention. I'm like, "Probably not, nah." And so like, I
Yeah,
did. I
you're proud of your ignorance. It's funny to you. I mean, it's funny to me. I'm glad we can laugh about it, but it's really sad. I mean, you're on a program every week where you represent your party's position and the information that's been given to you. You believe that people probably should vote the way you vote, should agree with your opinions. And yet it turns out that in the past couple of months, you didn't hear one word about 4 major peace treaties, one
Yeah,
in
I
the
did hear about
Balkans.
some of them.
Yeah, but when I brought them up, you always tried to discount them. You said, "Oh, they were going to happen anyway, or they really aren't very important, and Trump had nothing to do with it." And
I didn't say that. No.
no, you did. You actually
Part of
said,
that I said. I didn't
remember,
say Trump
yeah.
had nothing to do with it,
Well,
but
no, you said that they wanted to make peace anyway, and so it really didn't have much. It wasn't because of Trump. So you tried to dismiss it.
yeah,
Now,
okay, I'll agree with that. Yeah.
under the Obama-Biden administration, not a single peace treaty was signed between Israel and any of their neighbors. So, or the Balkans, for that matter. Uh, so Trump has now arranged peace between 3 major enemies of Israel and 2 countries in the Balkans, and that all of which were deadly enemies. And he claims that there are 5 more nations in the pipeline that are going to be making peace with Israel.
Who's doing
Now,
all this? Is this Pompeo flying around? Is this Jared Kushner? Who's doing it?
yeah, yeah, it's them and our ambassadors and Trump, of course. But that would no sooner make you vote for Trump than if a fly landed on your knee, right, Rick?
It would take a lot of peace treatying to change my vote. Actually,
Well,
my
why
vote
is it
can't
why
be,
is it that Biden wasn't able to get any peace treaties during his administration?
I don't know.
Maybe because he's not as good as Trump. Had that occurred to you?
That really has not been part of my thinking. No.
Well, let's go over it. You have one leader that makes peace treaties between 5 deadly enemies and 4 major peace treaties, all of which were considered impossible. And you have another leader that accomplishes virtually no peace treaties. So maybe Trump has the edge, at least on peacemaking and foreign policy.
Can we do a thing real quick? Can we take 3 minutes and I read about the peace treaty? And
Sure,
okay,
go
let's.
ahead.
Okay, so I read an article in Vox, which leans liberal, but is an honest dealer of news. And Vox said this is a fucking good thing, this Sudan-Israel deal. Um, and it explained that it's what I thought that we're brokering these deals based on we will, pay you to not be assholes to Israel. And I'm fine with that. That's a good, if we can make that deal, that's how we used to do diplomacy. We will give you a shitload of aid if you behave the way we want you to behave. So yeah, Trump did a good thing here. It also mentioned a little thing about how it's become apparently easier to make deals because everybody's scared of slash pissed off at Iran. That Israel's not the only one who hates Iran. The rest of the Arab world kind of hates them too, which makes it easier for it to team up with to make these deals with Israel because the old bone of contention used to be Israel Palestine, but now it's Iran versus the rest of the Mid East. But that regardless of that, even yeah, what Trump's doing here is a good thing.
All right. So
Not
now,
good enough for me to fucking vote for him in any way. I've already voted.
okay. All right. Well, you know that the Obama administration's approach was to make deals with Iran. And Obama had deliberately tried to make us closer to Iran. He gave them $150 billion secretly in cash, and along with a variety of deals. So I guess that approach didn't work out in the view of the Arab world.
Yeah, I don't know. Now, you're going to say this is immaterial, but just to give full background, when we fucking decided that Iran was a menace, um, we we took control of their assets, 150 billion or whatever it was, in assets they had invested in foreign banks. We're like, fuck you, Iran. We're taking your money. You get it back when we have a deal with you. So it's not like we gave them. Uh, you would argue, and you're entitled to make this argument. I'm not going to fight with you and say that Iran. That's not where I want to have the argument. That we were keeping Iran's 150 billion bucks. But when we made the part of making the deal was that they get their 150 billion back. And so it's not like we took 150 billion of taxpayer money and said, "Here you go, Iran." We
Oh
took
no,
100.
no, it was money that we had seized from them, and they used quite a bit of it to build up their armies so that they could invade Iraq and Lebanon and Syria and
Okay,
kill
but I'm just saying that
Americans
it's not
and
like taxpayer
and
money went to fuck.
and
So, but anyway, we
and
won't have to have an
no
argument about that.
and kill Americans in the process.
Oh, yeah.
And John Kerry, the man that helped negotiate the deal for the Obama administration, admitted publicly that some of that money went to terrorism that ended up killing Americans. Feel
Okay.
good, Rick? Good idea? Good
I said I
idea?
don't want to argue about whether that was a good thing or not because I don't fucking I'm not.
Well, do you think giving money to a country that's going to use that money to kill Americans is a good idea?
I don't know because but the deal is
That's a tough one, huh, Rick?
we had a deal with Iran that would have slowed down their building of a nuclear weapon.
Yeah, actually, it would not have. We've gone over
Yeah, but
that.
let's not have
And
that argument. Let's argue about new shit.
what they used the money for was to rampage their armies
Yeah, but
around the
fucking, all
Middle
right, I'm
East.
not gonna. I don't disagree with you that Iran is like the biggest sponsor. Right? They're the biggest sponsor of state terror. State sponsored terrorism in the Mid East right now. Is that the
Right,
case?
and both the Israelis and the Arabs thought that Obama did the wrong thing in trying to befriend them. But you're willing to vote for his successor, Biden.
Yes, I am. But I'm
All right,
not willing to get into an argument about whether giving them the money was the wrong thing or the right because I don't I at this point I'm not sure. So let's move on from that.
all right. So I have another point. Today, this week, there was an article by one journalist named Matt Taibbi, and
Yeah,
he works for
yeah,
the
he
Rolling.
writes for Rolling
He's an
Stone.
editor for Rolling Stone, and another journalist is somehow supporting of the article. His name's Glenn Greenwald.
Yep,
He's a Pulitzer Prize winner,
yep.
and both of them said, we're never going to be able to see the true uh, evil of Biden's actions, his bribery, until we go to the Ukraine and do some investigating. And so, just briefly, I need to restate the facts. Um, Hunter Biden got on the board of a company called Burisma. Burisma was being prosecuted by a prosecutor named Victor Shokin.
Hmm.
They gave Hunter Biden roughly several $1,000,000, 180,000 a month. But
Wait. What are you saying now?
the they gave Hunter Biden 180,000 a month. It amounted to several $1,000,000. And
So that every time you talk about this fucking deal, the amount of
The
money
number
he got.
goes up, yeah, because we found out it was 180, not 50. We found that out.
Yeah,
Now, let
and
me
every time you
continue.
say you
Rick,
found something out, then
Rick,
it needs to be poked at. But okay, go ahead.
okay, Rick, Hunter Biden received several $1 million to be on the board of trustees, to be on the board of Burisma, which is a
That's true, but
Ukrainian company.
the
Okay, okay, then don't quibble with me. Let me finish
no,
my
because
point.
but like when you
Can
keep
I finish
raising
my?
it from 2 million to 7 million,
Because it turns out that it's 180,000 a month is what he was getting.
it turned yeah, but it's some questionable source.
Is it
One of the
questionable that he ultimately received several $1 million from Burisma?
all right, go on, go on.
Thank you. Please don't interrupt me again because I'm trying to make this brief.
Okay.
Burisma was being harassed and prosecuted by an attorney general in the Ukraine called Viktor Shokin. In the computer laptop that was found, there is a letter from the head of Burisma saying, "Please use your influence to help us." There's, can you hear me?
Now, yeah,
All
we're
right.
good.
So what happened was there is a letter from the head of Burisma thanking Hunter Biden for introducing him to his father, Joe Biden, who is on record. He's on tape. You can see the tape if you type it in, where he was giving a talk at the Atlantic Foundation where he said that he told the leaders of the Ukraine that if they didn't fire the prosecutor that was investigating Burisma, he would withhold $1 billion in U.S. aid while the Ukraine was under attack from Russia. And within 6 hours, they fired the prosecutor, Viktor Shokin. Now, whenever I bring this up, Rick's main argument is that Shokin was corrupt and everybody wanted him to be fired. So what happened was Matt Taibbi, the editor of the Rolling Stone magazine, and Glenn Greenwald, a Pulitzer Prize reporter, checked out the situation. Taibbi went to the Ukraine, and they interviewed leaders from the Ukrainian government who revealed to them that there were between 7 and 14 prosecutions that Shokin had against Burisma. Okay, and that in fact he was fired while he was trying to prosecute Burisma, and they can prove it that those prosecutions were stopped because he was replaced by somebody that dropped the charges against Burisma.
Yeah, okay, so I've got a couple things. One is Matt Taibbi used to be one of my two favorite political writers, and then in my mind at least, he went insane. He got really Trumpy, and like now when I go on Twitter and his stuff comes up, I see a gazillion comments that kind of match my thinking, which is nice. It's nice when comments match your thinking. That say, "What the fuck happened to you, fucking Matt Taibbi?" But anyway, that aside, before I respond to the Shokin shit, um, I looked into Hunter Biden, and I want to give you some background because the whole thing about Hunter Biden, crackhead who was paid, some number of millions of dollars by Burisma, leaves out all of it. By not filling in his life story, it seems like he's just this kid who, by virtue of having the last name Biden, gets these sweet deals. Um, Now he's had a drug problem. I guess he's been fighting it for decades, and he's been to rehab a few times, but that leaves out his background that explains why he would end up on the board of Burisma. So let me just read this shit. And yeah, it doesn't necessarily attest to his moral strength, but it explains why he got the job. Besides that his last name's Biden. At 26, he graduated from Yale Law. And then he went to work for a bank holding company called MBNA, where he was made VP by 1998. Then he moved to the U.S. Department of Commerce.
Hang on, this is a Delaware bank?
Um, I don't know. They used to I used to have a
Yes,
mortgage with them.
actually, Rick, I don't mean to interrupt you, but before you go on, there's actually corruption involved there. You see, after he became a top executive at this Delaware bank, his father, Joe Biden, passed several laws that helped credit card companies and this Delaware bank.
Yeah, but like, I mean, Delaware is the place where Delaware is Biden is was senator from Delaware, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so and Delaware is the place you want to be incorporated as.
Right, but there was a sweet deal between the Delaware Bank and and uh, and later legislation that Joe Biden put forward that really helped that bank. And just coincidentally, his son at 26 became the VP.
Yeah, I don't have time to look. I didn't look into that. I could.
Yeah, well, it's interesting that they left that part out of the article, isn't it, Rick? Do you
No,
feel
because
well
it
informed?
wasn't about that. It was about his.
Well, there are people out there that are less naive than yourself who are suggesting that he was given that high position at 26 at this Delaware bank because his father
It's
could
not
then
a
pass
bank. It's a
laws.
bank holding company, which I don't
Yeah,
know what the
yeah,
fucking
yeah,
difference is.
yeah. And then his father was able to pass laws at Washington that were able to help that bank holding company. Do you understand that, Rick?
No, what I understand is that Delaware is where you want to be incorporated
No,
as
but
a
I'm talking
company.
about this specific situation
Yeah,
that
I
that
think that's
before the
probably one of those
history.
things where you've conflated a bunch of shit to make a bullshit
So
point
do
that
you?
falls apart upon
So
examination because Delaware is the preferred corporate headquarters for every fucking company, especially credit card companies. Delaware is this tiny little state, not much bigger than Rhode Island,
yeah,
and they've
everyone
got
knows this, Rick.
what?
But everyone knows this. But the one thing you didn't know is that after he became the head of this bank, his father passed a law that helped that bank.
Yeah, well, I'll look into it. If you want to take another break, I'll go read about it and I'll come back and report on it. Okay, a little bit of background. The deal is that um, these bankruptcy bills, consumer protection bills, um, determine uh, how much protection individual consumers have when they file bankruptcy, or protection from creditors, including most people's major creditors are mortgage companies and then credit card companies, and all these credit card companies are located in Delaware because Delaware makes it sweet for them. Um, and MBNA, where Hunter Biden worked, is the largest employer in the state of Delaware. So it's hard to um, divide, you know, Joe Biden's motivations between wanting to help the largest employer in the state and wanting to help his kid. I don't know that you can conclusively, you know, I mean, it doesn't look good, but fucking, you know, Joe Biden is working for the state of Delaware, and so maybe he won't be as tough in standing up for consumers. There's a Mother Jones article I didn't have time to read that says that, yeah, that he wasn't as tough on credit card companies as he could have been, um, because it's one of the biggest industries in his state. Um, so okay, so I'll admit that there's some potential stink attached to that. But anyway, let me finish with the background on Hunter Biden. So he works for MBNA, then he moves to work for the U.S. Department of Commerce. and then he becomes a lobbyist from 2001 to 2008. In 2006, George Bush appoints him to the board of directors of Amtrak, and he's VP of the board until 2009, when he quits being a lobbyist and, I don't know, quits Amtrak, I guess, and founds an investment firm and a venture capital firm, and a few years later becomes a lawyer for a giant law firm, and joins the board of the World Food Program USA, which is a program that works with the United Nations. He's on the board from 2011 till 2017, and he's chairman of the board from 2011 to 2015. Around that time, 2014, 2015, his Burisma, which is wanting to at least appear to clean itself up, hires Biden onto its board of directors, and the law firm where he's one of the lawyers, um, uh, um, as experts in corporate governance best practices. So it's not like he had zero qualifications.
So I'm meant to believe now that your argument as to the perfect reasonableness that Joe Biden would go to the Ukraine to try to give aid to them while they're being attacked by Russia, and at the same time his son should be on the board of a major company receiving millions of dollars from that country. And that's okay. And it's okay for them for the vice president of the U.S. to threaten to withhold vital military aid to the Ukraine while his son is on the board of a company that is being prosecuted by the government of Ukraine, and he's willing to withhold this vital aid unless they fire the prosecutor of the company that his son is receiving millions from. Because your argument is, well, he's a very well qualified man, nothing to see here,
No, I'm
no
not. I'm not
problem at
making
all.
that
No
argument.
ethical,
I'm not.
there
No,
are
hold on.
no ethical, there are no ethical considerations.
No, there
In
are.
your world,
Shut up for a second.
that's
So there are
ethical.
ethical dilemmas aplenty. But I just wanted to
I see.
explain that, like, that fucking Hunter Biden didn't get appointed to this board with zero experience or out of the blue, just on the basis of his last name. That he actually
No,
does. Now wait. So I mean, that he
he's
actually
very
does have a
qualified.
history in the field of corporate governance.
Second smartest man in the world.
No,
And
but
here's
no, look, there's
second
plenty
smartest man in the world, and he believes it. Yep,
I just
you're
said
right.
I'm not making that argument. The argument I'm making about
Yes.
fucking Shokin is that Taibbi and Greenwald and you are full of shit in arguing that Shokin wasn't corrupt. That's been
No,
widely debunked.
that's not actually my argument.
But
It's
hold on, no, hold on,
possible.
hold on.
No,
So
no, there are two
obviously,
things.
it's fucking obvious that Biden, that having the last name Biden, that having his family connections, fucking, greased the whatever gets greased, the wheels or skids or whatever, that it certainly helped Biden on his path through life, and that there were, opportunities for for shit to look ethically bad.
Okay. So
But when it comes to the Shokin thing, I'm
yes.
arguing that Shokin was a corrupt prosecutor who needed to be fired.
Okay. Now, what's interesting to me is that I'm going to take this argument. This is from Mark Levin, who argues that you can be two things at the same time. Maybe Shokin was corrupt, but we now have proof, unless you don't believe the Rolling Stone editor and a Pulitzer Prize-winning reporter,
Yeah, I don't
Glenn
believe those
Greenwald.
guys. They have
Okay,
fucking
so they're
communist
lying.
agendas. They
Now,
have.
now I want to say that the Ukrainian government. I've known this for almost a year now, for 2 years. The Ukrainian government has a series of witnesses that they are willing to send to the U.S. to say that Shokin was prosecuting Burisma. So I've known that all along. I just thought that because you told me you needed a credible journalist to tell you that you wouldn't believe it. So now I'm telling you that two credible
Yeah,
journalists in the United
Taibbi, I know
States.
Taibbi's
Well,
history, and he
okay,
used to be
okay,
credible, but he's fucking
okay,
gotten squirrely.
okay.
But now,
Anna,
you
wait,
hold
wait,
on. You
don't,
said that
please don't interrupt me. Please
no,
don't
wait, I
interrupt
got a
me.
question for I. You had a question for me. I've got a question for
No,
you.
no, but I
You,
wasn't
you
finishing my
just
point.
said that there are
Yes,
these Ukrainian officials who are willing to come to the U.S.
that's
Why
correct.
hasn't Trump brought him to the U.S.? I mean, what's
He's the Justice Department um, is full of Obama holdovers, and it's what happens is Trump has been told to stay away from political vendettas and to stay out of the things where they call him a Russian spy. And so he tries to let Bill Barr and the Justice Department deal with these kinds of things. But the offer has been made by the Ukrainian government to come to the U.S. at the behest and invitation of the State Department to show that Viktor Shokin was, in fact, prosecuting Burisma when he was fired at the threat from Joe Biden. That's not really in question anymore, Rick. And just
yeah,
saying, well,
it's been
show
widely fucking bunked.
no,
And
it
the
hasn't
deal
been.
is,
Rick,
the
Rick,
fucking
the
deal is.
government of the Ukraine claims. I don't know who can take this idea out of your brain.
Probably
Okay,
nobody.
so
It's in
nobody
there pretty
because
fucking.
even if the government of Ukraine is on record as saying that Viktor Shokin was prosecuting Burisma when they were forced to fire him.
The government of
That
the
is the
Ukraine is
official
on record
position.
of saying whatever it wants to get, what it thinks will give them political advantage in the international arena.
Well, there are records, though. There are records. Actually, there are records in international courts. There's a record in Vienna
All
of
right, so all right, so here's what I'll
of
do. Here's what I'll do. I'll read Matt Taibbi. I'll read Glenn Greenwald and be ready to talk about it our next meeting.
I don't. I mean, you can if you want to, but all it's going to tell you is that the Ukrainian officials, the official position of the Ukrainian government all along. So when I first brought this up to you 2 years ago, is that Viktor Shokin was trying to prosecute Burisma, and he may be corrupt at the same time, but that doesn't change the law. There are records, there are cases on record. There are investigations on record. This is not people's imagination. There's paperwork on it
Okay,
that
so
they,
I'll read up on it.
well, now wait a minute, just to tell you what I know offhand, and I'm not an expert. The president of Burisma had to flee with $5 billion. I think he took up a home on Cyprus.
And when did he
And
flee? When did the guy flee?
he fled because, among other things,
No,
Viktor Shokin had raided his home.
when did he flee? When did he leave with his $5
He
billion?
he
dollars?
he fled um, around the time that they hired Hunter Biden, and according to the laptop that we discovered, he personally asked Hunter Biden. No, it was the VP of Burisma, a man, I think his name was Shevlinsky, asked Hunter Biden to intercede with uh, apparently his father, Joe Biden. And then there was there is a letter on the laptop where the vice president of Burisma thanks Hunter Biden for introducing him to Joe Biden, and a few months later, Victor Shokin was fired.
Okay, so I mean, so you've presented your side. I've said that I consider parts of it either debunked or bullshit. I consider the laptop likely bullshit. Um, I don't know. Do
Do
we
you have
need to
any?
keep
Do you have
arguing
any?
about it? Can we move
Well,
on?
no. I mean, one of the things about the laptop we can argue a little bit is that the Biden campaign has not denied that that is his laptop. I heard the Biden campaign spokesman, when they asked her directly, she did not deny that it was his laptop. And furthermore, even though you have this thing that you imagine that it's made up somehow, none of our intelligence agencies uh, have said that this is a Russian plot. There is no you. I know that you
Oh,
don't
wait a second.
want.
Hold on. Wait a second. Somebody did say it's a Russian plot today on 60 Minutes.
No, actually, let me explain to you what happened. There are retired uh, spies and intelligence people that are saying it looks like a Russian plot.
Yeah, but this isn't a retired intelligence. Uh, Trump and all the four VP and presidential candidates were all interviewed on 60 Minutes tonight, and Carol and I watched the whole thing. And they asked Biden point blank, does he think the laptop thing is a Russian, disinformation campaign? And Biden says he listed all the ingredients, and he says it sure looks like it. So there,
Did he say it was not Hunter Biden's laptop?
no, but he did say it looks like a Russian,
Well, he
you
can
know,
say it looks like anything, but according the official position of the U.S. intelligence, that's the FBI, the NSA, the CIA, is that this has nothing to do with the Russians. So I know that you can say it looks like it does because you've been brainwashed to
no,
believe
I'm just
that,
fucking
but
quoting
there's
Joe Biden at this point.
okay, but he hasn't denied that that was his laptop, and neither has Hunter Biden. Have you
I
heard
mean,
any?
if that's
Have
the
you heard
case,
any?
then that's
Have you
not
heard?
that's a point against the Bidens. But
Well, just let me ask you a question. You're a smart guy, second smartest man in the world. Have
actually,
you
you
heard?
keep saying second, but another guy
Third,
got in
yeah,
there,
okay,
and I
okay,
think
okay.
I'm
So,
either
all
tied
right.
for second or now I'm in third place.
Well, you're more intelligent than a little child. Have you heard Hunter Biden deny that it was his laptop?
No,
Well,
but I
that's
haven't
pretty.
looked for Hunter Biden stuff
Well, I actually, Rick, I'll tell you why you haven't heard Hunter Biden deny that that was his laptop.
because he
The
hasn't.
reason, because he hasn't, Rick.
Okay.
So you can go ahead and believe that it's Russian intelligence and Russian spies, but Hunter Biden, the man who is featured in the laptop, has not said that it wasn't his laptop, and he's gone into hiding. There is no interview with Hunter Biden. Now,
Huh.
I'm going to tell you something that adults and smart people think. Smart people think that if it was my laptop, if people were saying it was my laptop, I would hold a press conference and I would say, that is not my laptop. But you see,
Okay.
I'm living in the sane world.
Okay.
You're living in the fantasy world where Hunter is this qualified man and Joe Biden would never take money from a foreign government and Joe Biden was a big peacemaker in the Middle East and Iran was our friend and they deserved that money. See, you're living in the weird fantasy imaginary world.
No,
And
I'm just
that's
giving you
really
background on shit. Like, I'm not saying Hunter Biden's a great guy, but I am saying, like, I like giving background like that. Hunter,
he
like
is
the
a great
background on the
crack
hundred.
addict.
Why did we give Iran the 150 billion? And I give you background on it.
Yeah,
I'm not.
like people really, but you see, in the sane world where people are more intelligent than 12-year-olds, it really doesn't matter if a country kills several thousand Americans in Iraq and then a year later, Obama gives them $150 billion. People don't say, well, it did belong to them. I mean, who cares if they killed a few thousand American soldiers in Iraq? It was their money, right, Rick? They deserved it, right, Rick?
I'm not saying they deserved it. I am
Well,
saying that
then
it's
why did
part of
your
this
guy
new.
give it to them?
I'm saying it's part.
Why did your man? I understand that there's some that they owned it before we seized it, but why did your man give it to them
Because
after
it
they
was part
killed
of the
several
nuclear
thousand?
deal. You remember they negotiated that nuclear deal for 18 months, or was it more like 4 years? It was a long negotiation.
Right.
Um,
And what did we get for the $150 billion, Rick?
we got Iran agreeing to provisions about uh, not developing certain aspects of its, nuclear program.
Yeah, that didn't work out, did it, Rick?
Well, it certainly hasn't now because Trump threw out the deal.
Yeah, but even during the deal, they were still building ICBMs.
Yeah, that part of the negotiation. It should have been, but it wasn't, right?
Yeah, isn't that funny how they left that part out, Rick?
Okay, so it wasn't a deal that was great in all ways, but
Okay, so they were going to get ICBMs, the things that you use to launch nuclear missiles. They continue to develop at fast pace.
okay, so it's a bad deal in some ways.
All right, thanks. I'm going to go now, Rick. Bye.
Wait, I got one more point.
Oh, you were going to ask me a question. Please,
No, I'm
please.
not. I was going to say a thing, which is,
Yes.
you guys, your side is trying to get this Hunter Biden stuff to be the equivalent of Hillary's emails, to tighten the polling gap between Biden and Trump, and I don't think it's working. One thing that seems to have worked a little bit is that during the final debate, Trump was more subdued. He was less interrupty. And this looks like it maybe helped Trump's standing a little bit. And the polls have narrowed a little bit. Um, but what gives me hope is 60 million people have already voted, either by mail or early at polling places, which means that the election is already 40% over, because 40% of everybody who's going to vote has already voted. So even if some of this shit starts to stick, even if Trump starts to look more presidential, um, I take heart in knowing that 2 out of 5 people have already voted.
What if it turns out that everything on the laptop is what we think it is? That it shows that Joe Biden's been taking bribes from the Russians, the Chinese, and the Ukrainians.
Yeah, I don't think any of that's going to be true.
All right, fine. Now I really do have to go. Good
All
night.
right. See you. Thank you. See you either. Okay. All right. Lance vs. Rick. Lance versus Rick at gmail.com is our PayPal address if you want to scoot us I don't know, $2.25. And if you don't, that's fine too. Thank you for watching.